President Trump has hit out at the UK and other countries, telling them to go get their own oil from the Strait of Hormuz. In a post of Truth Social, he said all of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the UK, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the US. We have plenty. Number two, build up some delayed courage, go to the Strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. Well, that statement from President Trump comes as Buckingham Palace has confirmed that the King's state visit to the US is to go ahead next month as planned. Charles and Queen Camilla's long-expected historic trip to see President Trump will take place in late April, despite calls for it to be postponed because of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Well, we have just been watching Pete Hegseth, US Defense Secretary, and he has reiterated Mr. Trump's message, saying, I think the president was clear this morning in his truth that there are countries around the world who ought to be prepared to step up on this critical waterway as well. And speaking just a short time ago, he said and claimed that the US is closer than ever to winning the war against Iran and that the upcoming days will be decisive.
Just 1 month in, only 1 month, we set the terms. The upcoming days will be decisive. Iran knows that, and there's almost nothing they can militarily do about it. Yes, they will still shoot some missiles, but we will shoot them down. Of note, the last 24 hours saw the lowest number of enemy missiles and drones fired by Iran. They will go underground, but we will find them. We recently destroyed another one of their command bunkers. Leaders forced to flee, no water, no power, no oxygen, no command and control. Their faith in their caves diminishing. The latest intel is clear out of CENTCOM. Our strikes are damaging the morale of the Iranian military, leading to widespread desertions, key personnel shortages, and causing frustrations amongst senior leaders. Just last night, we had 200 dynamic strikes alone. Dynamic strike is a strike where a pilot leaves and during their flight they get a new target set based on real-time intel given to them. A new launcher, a new location, a new troop formation. A dynamic target is one that changes while you're in the air because of improved intelligence. 200 dynamic strikes alone, in addition to the pre-planned targets. The video the president posted last night of Esfahan, an ammo depot struck by U.S. bombers. You see, you don't get to see many of those videos because, as a reminder, Iran has still shut off the internet to 99.9% of its population. But if Iran is wise, they will cut a deal. President Trump doesn't bluff and he does not back down. You can ask Khomeini about that. The new Iranian regime should know that by now. This new regime, because regime change has occurred, should be wiser than the last. President Trump will make a deal he is willing, and the terms of the deal are known to them. If Iran is not willing, then the United States War Department will continue with even more intensity.
Pete Hegseth there speaking a short time ago at the Pentagon. Let's take you live to Washington. We can join our correspondent there, Ione Wells. So much to unpick, Ione, as President Trump once again criticising European allies for not getting involved in the conflict and telling them to go to the Strait of Hormuz and just take the energy and the oil that they need. What did we hear from Pete Hegseth on Operation Epic Fury about what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz at the moment?
Well, certainly, I think he repeated some of the same criticisms that we heard from Donald Trump, essentially, in particular, taking aim at the Royal Navy. I think a reference there to the United Kingdom's Navy, accusing them of not essentially getting involved to help out. Now, clearly, the US is looking for a solution because this is choking the global oil industry. We've seen just today in the US, average gas prices hit $4. So this is starting to be felt around the country. country, but around the world too, in terms of the financial markets sliding as well, all of which are putting pressure on the US administration to try and find a kind of solution. Now, at the moment, Iran is controlling traffic in and out of the Strait of Hormuz and is charging any vessels millions of dollars if they want to get in or out. Now, that is something which the US wants to negotiate away, essentially. What's interesting, though, is we just heard there from Hegseth talking about Iran knowing the terms of the deal that the US wants to strike. Now, the US, as far as we know, had previously set out various things it was willing to negotiate on. This included, for example, essentially the end of Iran's any ambitions of a nuclear program, a severe reduction in its missile capacity, as well. Iran, though, has previously said that it wants, for example, negotiations around having sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz in the way that it has at the moment, or wants to negotiate around compensation for the damage that has been done during this war. So it does seem that we are hearing these increasingly contradictory statements about what potential terms of negotiations may be, but also whether talks are actually even happening at the moment. Pete Hegseth doubled down on the US's claim that talks are ongoing, that there's constructive progress underway. But all that we've heard out of Iran so far suggests that there aren't even any formal negotiations that have started so far.
What about the timing of the conflict, Ione? Because Pete Hegseth said different things about what victory could look like. And he said as long as this ends on the terms that the US has laid out. How did he deal with some of those questions about how long the conflict could go on for?
Yeah, I mean, they have repeatedly talked about a possible timeline of 4 to 6 weeks or so, but also set out these objectives that they want to meet in order to consider, from the US's perspective, this war over, which have been, as I say, a kind of complete prevention of Iran ever having a nuclear weapon in future, of essentially getting rid of its naval capacity, of severely reducing its ability to fire missiles, ballistic missiles as well. But I think where the terms of this have slightly changed is that initially I think the US was clearly angling for regime change, something which Pete Hegseth says has happened, although as far as we're aware, it is, the Iranian regime is still in power there. We don't exactly know who it is that the US says it is negotiating with. And I think one thing that isn't very clear at the moment, as I say, is that on the one hand you have the US saying that it is carrying out these talks, that if Iran makes a deal, that will be the way for this to end. But as far as we know, Iran says that those talks aren't ongoing. And I think Iran will want to be clear that it is not prepared to necessarily just come to the negotiating table only on the US's terms, not least because I think Iran is also skeptical of the fact that in the past, when there have been negotiations ongoing over reaching some kind of nuclear deal, notably last June, for example, Iran then did come under attack by the US and Israel. So I think there is sort of skepticism from the Iranian side about whether talks will be a front for further military attacks, for example. At the moment, we are hearing this sort of two-pronged approach from both Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, which is on the one hand, we want a deal, we want Iran to come to the negotiating table, they know what the terms are that we've set in front of them. On the other hand, though, this threat that if they don't, this conflict will escalate further. And we've heard a taste of what that might look like from Pete Hegseth, but also from Donald Trump, too, who has talked about potentially targeting electricity production plants, oil wells, even potentially seizing Haag Island, the main oil export hub in Iran, too. So these sort of threats of further escalation have been dangled as well by the US increasingly if there isn't some kind of deal reached.